The famous Rabbi Aharon Kotler was born originally in the year 1891 in the small city of Belarus known as Sislich. He was born with the given name of Aharon. His last name was Pinnes. You have to look up the correct pronunciation of that yourself. Where the name Kotler comes, it's not really clear. After losing his parents at a young age, he spent most of his formative years studying in a shul in Minsk, Belarus, the present-day capital of Belarus. The name of the shul was called the Butcher's Shul. While in Minsk, Rabbi Kotler, who oftentimes played chess for recreation, was involved in, quote-unquote, a chess match between Rav Reuven Grozovsky, who was a rabbi, a later Rosh Yeshiva of Torah Vadas, who wanted him to go to Yeshiva, and between the ideals of Theodor Herzl and his followers, who were pushing for him to be a secular Zionist. In fact, Theodor Herzl actually came to Minsk in 1902 and gave a powerful speech over there. Eventually, Rav Aharon decided to join the yeshiva in Slobodka, which was a neighborhood in the city of Kovno, Lithuania, the second biggest city in Lithuania after its capital, Vilna. While in the Slobodka yeshiva, the yeshiva which was called Knesset Beis Yisrael, named after Yisrael Salanter, who was the founder of the Musar movement, a movement dedicated to soul-searching, the yeshiva, while Rav Aharon was there, split into two, with the original yeshiva renaming itself Knesset Beis Yitzchak after the Rav of Kovna, Rabbi Aharon Spector, who was not in favor of the Musar movement, and the new yeshiva, which retained the old name of Knesset Beis Yisrael, which favored the Musar movement. Ultimately, Rav Aharon had to decide whether to leave the current yeshiva and join the newer yeshiva, headed by Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, also known as the Altar of Slobodka, who was in favor of the Musar movement, and he decided to join him instead of staying in the newly renamed yeshiva Knesset Beis Yitzchak, which eventually was headed by the famed Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz. Eventually, Rav Aharon followed his future father-in-law, Rav Isra Zalman Meltzer, to Slutsk, and shortly thereafter he married his daughter, Rivka Chana Perel, in the year 1912, even some say sending love letters during their engagement. Eventually, Rav Aharon became co-Rosh Yeshiva with his father-in-law, and the yeshiva soon thereafter moved to the nearby town of Kletsk, where it remained until the Nazis in World War II liquidated about 73% of the yeshiva, around 220 out of the 300 students. Rabbi Aharon Kotler, though, himself was rescued from Europe by an organization called the Vadhat Sola, the Organization for Rescue of Jews from Europe, formed by a prominent rabbi from Cincinnati named Rabbi Eliezer Silver, and he was brought to San Francisco in 1941. Soon thereafter, Rabbi Kotler joined the Vadhat Sola, and it was instrumental in assisting 24 rabbis who were stranded in Italy and getting deported back to Germany by arranging a deal with Joe Bonanno, the head of the mafia, the Italian-American mafia. He came and visited him and asked him if he could help him rescuing these rabbis, to which Joe Bonanno replied to Irving Bunum, who was the assistant to Rabbi Kotler, that he wanted a blessing from Rabbi Kotler. And Rabbi Aharon Kotler gave him the blessing that he should live a long life and die in his own bed. And apparently the bracha came to fruition as Joe Bonanno lived to the age of 97, when many mafia bosses would die in their 50s or 60s. In the year 1943, Rabbi Aharon Kotler founded the now famous Beis Medrash Govoha Yeshiva in Lakewood, New Jersey, which was situated on the Jersey Shore in Ocean County. Although Rabbi Aharon was Rosh Yeshiva in Lakewood, he chose to reside in Borough Park, Brooklyn, for most of the week, from Monday through Thursday. And for the weekend, for Shabbos, he would travel to Lakewood to the Yeshiva to be with the students, and he would even deliver his main Talmudic shir, his Talmudic discourse, on Shabbos itself. Rabbi Aharon felt dedicated towards an organization called Chinuch Atzmai, whose purpose was to develop a network of schools in Israel that would properly educate the ultra-Orthodox. In fact, in 1956, he was in charge of organizing a dinner for Chinuch Atzmai, where he invited Rav Yosha Ber Soloveitchik, the main Rosh Yeshiva at Yeshiva University, to be the guest of honor. The dinner was a major success and raised in excess of $100,000. Although Rav Aharon's main job was to be the Rosh Yeshiva of Lakewood, when his father-in-law, Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer, passed away in 1953, Rav Aharon inherited being the dean, the Rosh Yeshiva of his father-in-law's yeshiva called Yeshivas Eitz Chaim in Jerusalem. Even though he didn't spend time there most of the year, he did fly in several times and delivered lectures for a fortnight, which is about 2 weeks at a time, although most of the time he remained in America. Ultimately, Rav Aharon passed away November 29, 1962, at Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. Interestingly enough, about a year later, November 22nd, 1963, the President of the United States, John F. Kennedy, was assassinated, which would end up being that if John F. Kennedy was Jewish, which he was not, his Avelus, his Shiva, would have ended exactly a year after the Petira, the death of Rabbi Aharon Kotler, which is interesting because after he died and had a big funeral and eulogy in New York City, he was flown to Israel to be buried in Har HaMenuchos. He flew out of JFK Airport, which at that point was not called JFK Airport. It was called Idlewild Airport because John F. Kennedy had not been passed away yet at that point. Interestingly, it was named John F. Kennedy Airport to commemorate the death of John F. Kennedy, which appropriately would have been after the quote-unquote Shiva, which would have ended at the Yortzeit, the first Yortzeit of Rabbi Aharon Kotler. When Rabbi Aharon started Lakewood Yeshiva in 1943, he started with 15 students. By the time he passed away in 1962, he had amassed a student body of 250 students, serving as Rosh Yeshiva for 19 years, 7 months, and 1 day. Upon his Petira, his son, Rav Shneir Kotler, took over as Rosh Yeshiva and served the exact same amount of time as his father as Rosh Yeshiva, a total of 19 years, 7 months, and 1 day. And when he died, the yeshiva numbered around 1,000 students. When he died in 1982, the yeshiva was taken over by his son, the grandson of Rav Aharon, Rav Malkiel Kotler, along with some brother-in-laws. So he is the current Rosh Yeshiva nowadays. And now, as of 2022, the student body is numbered over 7,000 students, making it the second biggest yeshiva in the world after the Mir Yeshiva in Jerusalem. Rav Aharon's impact is felt much greater than just the yeshiva that he created in Lakewood, New Jersey, to the point where the 2021 gubernatorial elections between Phil Murphy and Jack Ciattarelli was ultimately probably decided by the Jewish population in Lakewood, New Jersey. Because of the yeshiva, a huge amount of Jews decided to live in Lakewood, accounting for about 60% of the 150,000 residents that live in Lakewood Township. And because of them and their rabbanim instructing them to vote for Phil Murphy was narrowly able to beat Jack Ciattarelli in the 2021 gubernatorial elections. I hope you enjoyed this video with the life of Rabbi Aharon Kotler. It was meant to be done in a way that's as impartial and fair and accurate as possible. There are people that might disagree with some of the facts, some of my interpretations. I have no bias in doing this. I'm trying to report the facts as the most interesting and accurate and impartial way as possible. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like the video, please subscribe to my channel, and please comment below with videos that maybe you would like to see. Maybe a portrayal or a different person, a different gadol's life. Hope you enjoyed. Bye.